This is NHTV2, North Haven Government Television, a service of North Haven Community Television. The following program is brought to you through the support of the Town of North Haven.
Good evening. I'd like to call our February 16th meeting to order. We do have a full agenda tonight. Besides our normal meeting, we have 3 areas of workshop that we'll be reviewing tonight. So let's get right into it. Minutes from our regular meeting from January 19th. Everyone has had a chance to look at it. Questions or comments? Can I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
Okay.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We have no old business, new business, expenditures. Questions? Maybe to make it quick, I'll just do a quick roll call on some of these items. Michael, anything on expenditures?
No, sir.
Tim?
Just wanted to, I guess, Mike, unfortunately, I'll have to defer to you if you know the answer.
What page?
Page 17, the traffic lights, they're almost double the budget.
Well, we have upgraded traffic lights across the town. There's some new ones that are with more illumination, so I think that's probably what that is.
You think so that's the actual illumination, i.e. electricity for the lights in there?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
All right, nothing else, Tim? Diane, anything?
Just a comment on central facilities, I see we're uncovering more, so I know we talked about this last time where there's a lot of maintenance going around town, but looks like we still have some to go. Page 7.
7, yeah. Yeah, we're at,
Yeah, let me take you through that, okay? So
Sure.
you're talking about line 409?
Yes.
All right, so you see the 124,750. So a couple of things came into play on this particular line. We had to do an airflow test over at the annex, which cost us money. There was a problem over there. And then the water treatment system at the annex was defective, so we had to put a valve replacement in there, and we had to encumber $8,900 for that. So these were unexpected expenses that came up at the annex, which now mean that we've exceeded the budget. That's what that is.
Thank you, Michael. Anything else, Diane?
No.
Jim?
No, I was going to ask about that, so.
Nancy?
I just had a quick question on page 2. The collection of back taxes.
Yeah, I've seen it myself.
Yeah, again, if we then look at page 1 of revenue, it seems as though, I guess the question is it worth it, both the legal fees and as well as the collection of back taxes? It seems like we're spending an awful lot there.
What page, Nancy, on the expenditures?
Oh, I'm sorry, page 2.
Page 2.
Page 2 under legal.
Okay, yeah.
You spent $14,000.
As well as legal fees, judgments and claims, I assume.
Well, you know,
There's quite a bit going on there, but
we've got some foreclosures, and many times the expense precedes the revenue. So we'll see what happens next month on the revenues coming in.
yeah, it seemed to me that a lot of that comes from the town clerk, so I guess I'm a little surprised that there would be so much in legal as well.
The 86,000, if you're talking about the 86,000 year-to-date on legal?
No, just the collection of back, well, it was both. It was both the legal fees.
Well, which
and
legal fee, which legal line, legal fees, judgment and claims?
The legal fees month-to-date expended of $22,000, and then the collection of back taxes is more the year-to-date,
Yeah,
which
but-
is up to 183% of what we
The
budgeted.
legal fees is judgments and claims, that has nothing to do with collecting taxes.
Yes, no, I'm saying those 2 back-to-back
Two
line
back-to-backs,
items,
okay,
that's all.
yeah. All right.
Okay. Anything,
Each one is light, don't forget.
yeah. Anything else?
Sir, the,
Wait, let's Nancy finish. Anything else, Nancy?
Oh, yeah,
On
just
expenses?
on expenses on page 10. Again, we're for the fire department, contractual replacement staffing, it appears the month-to-date expended was about $94,000, and we're up to about 75% for the year for that particular line item. I'm also wondering about building maintenance and repair. That's line item 1285410. Again, it seems as though there's a $43,000 encumbrance, and that line item is already up to 105% for the year. And lastly is this perpetual question about the water in the fire department, which again has exceeded our budgeted amount, so.
All right, we'll see if we can get an answer from the chief why his month expenditures for contractual obligations is higher. I would assume he had people out. His presentation kind of, but it seems even higher than it should be normally. So maybe something more significant happened.
Yeah. If you just trend that out, I mean, we're year-to-date 660, and then if you trend out the $94,000 times another 5 months in the year, that gets us to about $1.1 million for that particular line item that's only budgeted at 873. And again, I'm assuming that there's no pandemic consequences as there were last year.
All right, we'll call the chief and ask him in
Great.
January, what was the little blip he had, if he could explain it.
That would be terrific, thank you.
Anything else on expenditures? Revenue? Yes.
Yeah, just a quick question on the interest on bonds and notes. I just want,
Yeah.
is that a level payment that we make all year long, or is that 2 months' worth in the current month-to-date expended?
So I have to make another payment on that, April 1st, so, but it's generally 2 payments a year.
Oh, okay, it's only listed here as $467,000 out of a $2.7 million line.
So,
And so that's,
We have
it's,
a- we have a
you
big
think it's
payment.
quarterly, maybe?
well, I know I have a big payment coming up I have to make, so.
Yeah.
Probably
There's a balloon payment coming probably.
We still have bands up, how Mike?
Yeah, we have
So I mean,
bands.
you got a mix of bands and regular bonds, so.
That's right,
It
yeah.
could be a little, it may not be exactly level.
Okay. I just see a certain amount of period left to this year of months, and it's 73% expended.
Well, you know, a lot of it's front-loaded, so, but with one more payment to make, we shouldn't exceed that. That'll be the number we pay. So,
Okay, thank you.
let me direct your attention to one item that jumped out at me. And go to page 5 on maintenance and grounds, last 3 digits, 212. So what happened here was that gravestones were damaged in the Elm Street Cemetery. So because of the specialization needed to move those stones and reset them, we had to hire Nolan Cemetery to do that, and that's why that number is jumped up beyond what the budget was.
There's no insurance for that, is there?
No.
No, okay,
No.
all right, sorry.
Thanks, Mike. Revenue?
Sorry, I actually have one more question. Mike, central facility switchboard, is that on?
What page?
6.
That's a good question.
At the very bottom, and most of the numbers are next to it. I'm just curious, which department head is that?
Department 230.
Yeah.
I think it's a catch-all.
Yeah, this captures all the central facility costs,
Town hall,
town hall, annex.
loss forms, checks. Yeah, it looks like it's a combination.
Because if you remember what I said earlier about item number 409, airflow test at the annex, water treatment, system valve replacement, so town hall, annex. Annex including community services and the park department.
I mean, look at something like radio. It covers 3 different departments in town, so it comes under central
Yeah,
supply.
it's just that there's a few lines here that are quite over, 137%, 120, 116, 87.
Yep.
It's not a huge budget in total.
So when we look at when we look at this in its aggregate, we're about 64% expended against budget, 56% time elapsed, but a lot of the stuff is front-loaded that are non-recurring costs that will smooth themselves out over the back half of this fiscal year. So I fully intend to come in under budget on a total expense line item, on a total expense bottom line item, although some of the line items may be over, so.
Thank you, Michael.
And Mike, do you know anything on page 12? It seems as though in sanitation, there's quite a bit of overtime. And so that particular line item, the third one down, seems to have exceeded what we've budgeted. Has there been somebody injured, somebody out sick?
Is that under category 330 you're referring to?
320, sanitation?
320. Yes. Overtime, storms, and with some of the recent storms we've had, paying the overtime to get the streets really prepared in advance, and then continue to get the streets.
So not streets and roads, this is sanitation.
Oh, okay. Yes.
320.
We had overtime on sanitation also, yes. What happened was that on one of the routes in an ice storm, we decided not to pick up recycling. So because we couldn't get the trucks around.
Got it.
So we did a Saturday pickup, and I authorized the overtime for that.
Yeah, it seemed like there was a 1 month kind of a
Yes.
blip there, and I just wondered what was behind that. Okay, thank you for explaining.
You're welcome.
Revenue. Michael?
I'm okay.
Tim?
No questions, I only have a couple of good line items from there, that's all.
Diane?
Same, I was gonna say.
Jim?
Nothing.
Nancy?
I just wanted to comment on page 2, under Town Revenue General. It says the sale of town property. It seems like we had a sale in this last month of $45,000, and that particular line item is booming. So have we sold a lot of property this year?
Well, you know, part of that's Salat Street. I'm not sure of the full composition of that. But we've had a couple of sales, yes. I'd have to check the number, though. It seems a little bit high.
Okay. And it appears, I think we talked about the last time, but the Covanta settlement of the 93,582, that was only about 70% of what we budgeted, right?
Yeah, two things come into play on this. Well, through the negotiations with the policy board and the attorneys, we ended up settling for less than what the original projection was. Not only us, but Hamden, Wallingford, Meriden, and Cheshire.
Right.
But in conjunction with that, I was able to orchestrate, as chairman of the board, a liquidation of funds. And if you refer to line item number, last 4 digits, 9074.
And I was just going to ask about that.
Okay, so here's the update.
Yes.
What does stabilization mean?
Yeah.
I have that highlighted here.
So tip fee stabilization means this, Jim, that in an environment where tip fees continue to rise with no notice in advance, so you prepare a budget under one tip fee structure, and then you're vulnerable through an inflationary aspect of this industry to have rate increases like we did and everyone else across the state. So this tip fee stabilization fund was something I put in place with Ed. And the number you see there, 295,000, is a number that represents North Haven's percentage of a reserve fund that we had booked with the Covanta Policy Board. So that number, our 295,000, was our share of a larger fund that Meriden, Wallingford, Cheshire, and Hamden were part of. So what we've done is we have liquidated the fund.
Yeah, that was done once years ago, and it
Right.
was in the millions at that time.
Years ago, back in 2008.
Yes, yeah.
So coming back to Jim's question, that the reason this is in the budget, because I knew somewhere along the line the tip fees were going to go up. So we had put this line item in the budget to get the release of the fund that was held by the town of Wallingford to get us a distribution that would help us mitigate the rising cost that we see in the tip fee line item. So it's called a stabilization fund. So it was designed to give us incremental revenue to offset the incremental costs that we were going to receive. So the latest on this is that I just received a check for $292,600. So that line item Next month is about $2,800 short of what the projection was. The reason is I wanted to liquidate the fund with the other mayors also on board. And the $295 was based on what the interest would have been accumulating in the account if we had waited to the end of June. So that check is in-house, $292,000 is getting applied to the line item. I talked to our finance, the gentleman that does the account receivables. I directed him where to apply it, and that money's in the house. You'll see it next time.
Okay.
No one's gonna say you don't look ahead.
Normally, when I don't get paid back what I expected, they always accounted to the VIG involved in the bet. But that's a nice number. That's good. And is that fund empty, or is there stabilization for next year?
That fund is empty.
So we won't be stabilized next year? No, there's
No.
nothing to assist us in this matter, or is there anything on the state level?
So here's what you're going to see, I think, that you're going to see this. As we move forward in this budget process, we had put a number in the budget, that's in the budget already. Let's say that number's $1.4 million, okay? I think that's what the number is. In other words, the tip fee projection. But knowing what I know, how the rates are not going to rise next year, monitoring the actual utilization rate of North Haven's deposits at the trash facility in Wallingford, that I anticipate that I'm going to come forward with a decrement suggestion to knock that $1.4 million down by about $300,000 to $1.1 million. So there might be some savings in what you currently see, we put in the budget to what the actuality may be. And that's the only thing I see to help stabilize this.
But we've seen nothing but rising projections in terms of tipping fees for the future.
But what I'm saying is that I'm certain there's not going to be a rise in tip fees next year, so that when we track what our utilization rate is currently, and we project it to what next year would be, times what I know the tip fee is going to be, it may end up to be $1.1 million versus $1.4 million, which for the sake of this budget takes $300,000 out as a decrement.
And again, we can deal with that when we're working with the budget, but as I said, he's using the known waste stream the town has been exhibiting, times that he feels is a more than fair price. Anything else on revenue? Special funds?
Just one other thing about revenue, sorry. Just wanted to point out that the building fees and fire fees, which of course go hand in hand, are a little bit on the low side, but of course we're very optimistic and
And the
hopeful that
parametric fees also.
that we're going to be very busy this coming spring. So I'm hoping that those numbers will
Well,
increase.
to that point today, I was with the developer for At Home, and permits are going to start being pulled on the facade, the exterior work, so there could be a lot of money coming in the next 2 or 3 weeks when those permits are pulled for the At Home retailer, the 80,000 square foot retailer that we're bringing in here, so.
How about the hotel? We get a lot of
Yeah,
business too.
yeah, I talked to the owner of the hotel, because these are all projects I'm directly involved with, and they'll break ground in April, so there'll be more permit fees coming in on that.
Thank you. Again, special funds?
We can see from the January sheet that we just received that the Board of Ed has added almost $300,000 to their capital improvement account. From, it's the receipt from last year's
Yeah.
surplus.
Right.
Yeah.
I think that's just a reimbursement, right?
So Mike, I'm sorry, Mike, what are you looking at on the special funds here? I only see $2,000 of income.
The January 22 revenue,
Yeah, there are two special,
we received another sheet today.
yes, so one is
Because,
December
because the one-
31st and one is
Oh, I'm
January.
sorry, there's another sheet up here.
Yep.
Well, the thing is that what we received last,
Yeah.
in our package was, I think, a copy of last month's
Yes, I see it, I got it.
report.
They've also given us information on their expenses. See the year-to-date expense, Michael? Mm-hmm. And that correlates down to where you see security system, fencing, sign.
Okay. Yeah, that was already in the list, listed as within the previous month, for the most part. Yeah. Yeah, I like the breakdown. This report is improved each and every month.
Board of Ed.
In addition to the Board of Ed material we received in our packet, today we got some clarifications and some additional information on,
Next year's budget.
Budget workshop, the question.
Again, and we'll deal with that as we finalize the budget. I really don't want to discuss
Just going to check.
information related to any one department until all departments have presented.
right. Well, my question just had to do with ESSER 2, the ESSER 2 funds. Within the Board of Ed reports, within the narrative, they always, Howard mentions how ESSER funds are applied to certain accounts that are either going over or are for expenditures that are not in his original budget. And the ESSER fund, the ESSER 2 funds seem to be divided up two ways. One is for money that we have somehow budgeted for as an income item and included in our, in the general budget that goes toward the general education expense budget that's already established. And I guess a portion of the ESSER 2 funds are handled outside of the normal annual town budget. Is that not correct?
I'm not sure
I
I'm
didn't follow you.
following you, Michael.
Well, you know how special, how the
ESSER's outside the budget
then,
as far as,
well, I'm looking
yeah,
at
there's a
it,
federal ESSER 2 for $473,000 on our revenue.
right. So that's what I'm trying to just get a handle on here is that, as long as there's no double accounting going
Sure.
on.
No, that I can assure you is not happening, so no double accounting.
Well, ask Howard the question,
Okay?
right?
You know, okay.
Well, ask Howard the question. I don't think anyone here has the answer.
Well,
On Board of Ed.
no, because I looked for the answer within the new information he gave us with that answer, that was to answer some of our previous questions. And it's still not that clear.
Okay.
So, okay. Thank you very
Anything
much.
else on Board of Ed?
Yeah, I got something here. On Patrick's cover page, he's listing hiring of 10 persons.
Paraprofessionals.
Yeah, and in the budget that he proposed to us a week ago, he's also looking at for another $321,000. So I want to know if these 10 people are going to be offsetting the budget number.
Again, we can ask him a question, but I really don't want to discuss next year's budget until everyone presents.
He was adding 3 staff in my
He-
recollection, right? I don't have his budget.
Yeah, I mean, I do have his budget with me, but I'd rather not discuss until everyone presents their budget test. I don't want to start drawing conclusions as to where we're going to spend dollars until police and registrars and,
No,
Town
I'm just
clerk.
trying to help with Jimmy's question.
Yeah.
He didn't say anything about hiring 10 extra people.
I don't remember him saying, I think a lot of what he was discussing, the fact that he is supplementing some of those positions with ESSER funds,
Yeah, he had 3 people that he was paying with ESSER funds he wanted to convert.
and he wanted to stretch it out a little further than maybe we want to stretch it out.
Well, he's got others that he was gonna bring on
Yes.
next year, right? That was my.
That was our only thing, but again, budgetary thing, Jim, if you please, can we wait till?
I think the things that are listed here, Jim, happen to be items that either were not budgeted or exceed their budgeted amount, and at least in this current fiscal year, are covered by ESSER funds. Now, what that will translate into in the
Next
future
year, we don't know.
is a separate issue.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Can I have a motion to accept the minutes as presented?
The reports?
The reports, I'm sorry.
I'll move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Close out fiscal year 6/30/21. Mr. Frieda, you have an update for us?
Yes, so first of all, let me say that our auditors will be here next month to present the CAFRA and the actual close. After Ed passed, I had requested a extension. So our extension was through February 15th. So Joe Sanafani and I closed the books at 7 o'clock on February 15th. So I have an executive summary here. It's a one-pager. If you like, I'll pass it out. I'll take you through it briefly. You'll hear a full presentation next week from our auditors. So, Jim?
Next month?
Next month.
Okay.
Next month.
I didn't know if we're gonna have another meeting.
No.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
This is just an executive summary. You'll see the words across diagonally preliminary draft. Forgive the top, if for some reason it cut off with myself and the auditors. But essentially, this is an illustration of revenues, expenditures, other financing, and fund balance as of June 30th. So I'll spend just a couple minutes on this. So in the beginning, you heard me say right from the beginning, we're going to use federal funds to balance the budget, which was my intention. However, because even though we were re-rated AAA again, we have two red flags. One is fund balance not being where the rating agencies would like it, and believe it or not, the fact that I have not raised taxes in the last few years. That's a red flag. They want tax increases. So we're high in our peer group on economic development and strong management, but lowest in our peer group of AAA-rated agencies, municipalities in terms of fund balance and, believe it or not, no tax increases. So the auditors had advised me that by further utilization of federal funds to balance the revenue loss, that would raise a third red flag with the rating agencies. So what you see here, direct your attention down to net change in fund balance, $215,642. That is the town's surplus at the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. That surplus is derived by taking over $500,000 of MRSA and dumping it into the revenue, because the auditors say MRSA's in the general fund anyway, and they advised me to do it this way rather than take federal funds. So that's what we've done. So the utilization of 500 and I think it's 27,000 or so of MRSA, putting it into the general revenue. And then if you look down to project transfers, 400,000, which is a transfer in of capital outlays and also a police department fund that we've had.
Mm-hmm.
When we add it all up, including taking a 60-day window, which we're allowed to in municipal government, taking a 60-day window of tax collections after the close of the fiscal year. Those tax collections in that 60-day window were about 159,000, somewhere in that range. We capture credit for that, and then when we roll it all up, we deliver a modest surplus of 215,000. We drop it into the fund balance to give us a little relief there, and this is what you're going to hear from the auditors next week. So to summarize, we capture the 60-day window of tax collections after the end of the fiscal year. We put in 500,000+ on MRSA. We utilize the transfers, okay? The transfers in, but when we do that, we have to calculate the transfers out. And it's important to note that in GAAP accounting, that GAAP accounting is what municipalities need to certify that the audit is accurate. The utilization of GAAP accounting mandates that that revenues and expenditures have to be reported in their aggregates. And that was another way the auditors advised me to put in over $500,000 on MRSA rather than take $500,000 out of federal funds to capture the benefit of that so that we can create a surplus which gets put into the fund balance. That's the executive summary.
So you didn't use any ARPA funds?
To balance, no.
to balance the budget?
Other than what was already in the budget.
No,
Yeah,
other than what was.
We didn't use any ARPA funds in this calculation. We utilized, as I said, 500+ thousand in MRSA.
And again, this is a draft, so the auditors will be here next month.
Right.
We can get the final version, and we can ask any questions at that
Oh,
time.
you'll see the final version, yes. You'll see the final version with a deeper explanation.
But we didn't have ARPA funds in last year's
Right,
budget.
ARPA was not
correct?
in last
That's
year's
in
budget.
this year's budget.
Right, so, well, Ed and I treated it as a separate entry. We're calculating our expenditures on ARPA versus the $3.5 billion we've received. But there was a $1,243,000 entry this past fiscal year that sort of confuses it in the revenue column. So this report, this executive summary, does not show any additional ARPA funds used other than what may have already been in the fiscal year budget ending June 30th. You seem
Okay.
confused.
I'm a little bit confused by that because it wasn't in the budget, so.
Oh, no, did
So
it get?
we might have added it, we
Did
might
it
have
get
added it, but it wasn't.
Did it get added?
And last I checked, the only ARPA
last
funds
month
that
or
had
two.
been spent
We didn't even
were
know how
for
much we were getting.
charitable distribution and I believe to pay for a consultant.
That's right.
So
what
there
I'm
has
saying
been a
is-
change
What I'm
since
saying
then.
is, there's no utilization of ARPA funds in this report I just gave you. That's what
Okay.
I'm saying.
I see. And was there some legislative change that enabled you to utilize the MRSA funds in this different way?
No, it was always available to us. And
Okay.
it's done in other municipalities. We've never really done it that way, but we had the ability to do it this way.
Okay,
So, because the money, even though it's all in the general fund, it may be segregated differently, but that's how we're able to use it.
I see.
Because it's there,
okay.
so.
All right, again, we'll get the final version next month, and the auditor will be here if we have any specific questions.
Well, the transfers in and transfers out are
Special
from
funds.
special funds.
Special funds, right.
Special funds.
Now, were those what was already budgeted? Because we did budget, I think, a withdrawal of funds from the special funds.
I don't
Is that
remember.
in addition
Right.
to what was originally budgeted?
Extra.
Yeah, there's another 200,000 and 200,000 capital outlay, and I think police that we were able to factor in there.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Ed always used to swipe it at the end of the,
Now, it's also very important to note that when the CAFR is done, I've got to make sure that it's not only filed with the SEC, but also filed with another institution that if it's not filed, then we lose a couple of points in terms of financial credibility. But I'm on top of that. That's going to be done. The CAFR you'll see next month will be reported the way it should be reported to protect the financial integrity of the government.
thank you, Michael.
Now, again, the transfers in were from special funds. The transfers out are from,
The costs associated with the transfer in,
No, he said.
No.
or
Yeah, there's a capital account with transfers out that came out. That's what it is. But Mike, look, the way this is, Joe Senefani and I have really reviewed this so many times, and you'll hear more about it next month, okay? The bottom line for this meeting is this is an executive summary, and we're able to deliver a surplus, which is much needed because we've got to get this fund balance up. So,
we can ask the auditors next month, Michael.
if you like, I can send you the actual transfers in and transfers out in terms of what they were. But it was not my intention to get deep into the weeds here tonight. Be more than happy to give you the information if you like.
it's such a summary that it's not totally discernible, but okay.
Okay, well, keep in mind, we delivered a surplus because of the reasons I've said.
Thank you, Michael. Having finished item 4 on our agenda, public comment. And again, I ask those making public comment, we do have workshops after this,
Yeah.
if you can make your
Sir, I
comments.
have two comment questions or whatever you want to call it for that, for the end here. And that has to do with our budget process. The medical insurance is always under stress and scrutiny in terms of, since we're self-insured, keeping track of what our expenses are and what the claims are. And I once again would request a meeting of the medical insurance work group to review the status of the program and to get some direct communication from our agents and to understand the trends and the estimates that are required to formulate the budget that we're right now working toward.
Well, I have the trends, I can give you that, I can talk to you about that, but we've got, I think, a 3% increase in the budget. Our dental claims have gone down in the last month for reasons that should be apparent. Our claims went up significantly, so we're really marching down to see where we end up, and, you know, every 13 months, the previous low, 1 month gets added, 1 month gets dropped off, so, but I understand what you're saying, so we're watching it closely.
The meeting last year was very enlightening, and I hope we can do that again.
Right.
Yeah, and then the last question here is, and I'm still in disbelief about how I have to ask this, what is
As
the
long as we're not talking about next year's budget.
what is the process of finding the next director of finance?
So, I'm more than happy to answer if you like. So there won't be a director of finance. There will be a comptroller, certified public accountant. And then there's a position in the budget that you've seen, director of administration, personnel, procurement. We'll be reorganizing the community services, the senior center, and the park department, so that those responsibilities which Ed had will no longer be part of the finance department. There will be a consolidation of senior center and also the community services. There's a position in the budget for that, a new position. And then those people will be reporting into me here, because I dealt with them anyway, so there'd be no change for me. And community services is very important, something I'm watching closely because of the billings. The billings, we have to make sure that the revenue is coming in on the counselor billings. So downstairs, summarizing it, comptroller, certified public accountant, director of administration, procurement.
What time frame are you looking at for the CPA?
We're posting the job probably the first week of March, and there's enough money in the budget for sadly obvious reasons, and we'll be able to bring that person in probably sometime in April.
My only reason for asking, it takes a little bit of pressure off of you.
Yeah, so what process are you going through to find this individual? Are you using any advice or a consultant?
No. The job will be posted. We're looking also with my affiliation with CCM. There's a list of those people that are out there, and believe it or not, there are some people from the private sector that may be interested in this job also, who were CFOs in companies. So.
Yeah, so the controller, okay, so are we hiring, how many people are we hiring? Just one? Or, I mean, are the other positions that you stated in the new structure, are they already present or established or being redesignated?
So in the revised structure, which would be over at the annex, we already have a position in the budget for Director of Community and Senior Services. That's already in the budget that you have. So that job will be posted, and we'll bring someone in to fill that. As I mentioned in a previous meeting, Judy Amarone's retiring. She's going to go part-time, so we pick up some savings there to help fund the new position. Downstairs, it'll be, again, the two new positions.
Two new.
Two new.
Right, okay.
And there's a position in the budget already for payroll, so we're going to probably have to bring in we have a part-time payroll person now, training under Anne-Marie, and my goal is to have Anne-Marie completely be involved with human resources, train that person on payroll, and if necessary, between now and the end of this budget cycle, we may have to bump that position to a full-time position on payroll.
So in the finance department, who is responsible for the decisions that Mr. Swinkowski would be making?
That man right there.
You're looking at.
Yeah.
You got to keep in mind this.
What about on days you're sick? Is there anyone else down there?
We're definitely going way off topic, so.
It's a finance topic.
No, but I mean,
Yes.
you're talking about the budget, next year's budget.
You see, before we conclude, you have to please understand this, that for whatever the reasons, I'm probably the first selectman in the last 50 years that has been so actively involved with the finances anyway, that most of this I can do, with the exception of two things. One is the munis reporting, which now we're training my office to do. And really, the state filings, because Ed had a separate password, only he did that I'm trying to do now. Everything else is something that is very familiar to me. But that doesn't mean to Jim's point, we have to get help in here, and we will get help in here.
That's our real concern.
Yes.
Is just making sure we have appropriate resources in order to best serve the community.
Absolutely.
And that is our responsibility. And so there won't be a director of human resources per se?
Well, that's Anne Marie right now. Anne Marie
Okay.
will do that.
Right.
She's been doing that. But I'll be extricating from her the payroll responsibility so she can focus 100% on HR.
I see.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. And I just have one quick comment. I provided you each with a copy of this, and I won't review it right now. I just wanted to make sure that everyone had a copy of this model that I created so that you can be thinking about the proposal that was made by the fire chief for the 11-man crew. Again, I've provided, both the assumptions, the actual model itself, some samples, as well as the conclusions. And the reason I'm providing it now, as opposed to next month, is so that the Republican members of this board, when you get together and you put together your list of declinations, that you have this information and you can be thinking about it. And please correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chairman, but if any individual on this board would like to contact me one-on-one, they can.
No.
And- What do you mean, no?
Well, if they talk, if a member of this board speaks to you
Yes.
One-on-one.
with the idea that they're going to then speak to the group of Republicans, shall we say, that's called daisy chain and it's not allowed. It's going around Robert's rules.
If somebody
If you
has a
talk-
question
if
and
you-
they ask me a question and I answer it, it's for their
No, that-
individual edification.
And that's fine.
Yes.
If your intention is to talk to someone on the board, and that person related to a meeting, or to a group of their caucus, that can't be done.
Well, then that's up to the individual. I can't control that. I'm just saying, if anyone on this board has a question, that I'm just making myself available. You can call me, you can email me, and one-on-one, we can have any type of discussion about this model in case there are any questions. That's all I'm saying.
So I haven't seen it, Nancy. You have
Oh,
something? of
it's,
document?
you have a copy, but I will certainly provide you with
Right there in front of you.
It's the color one? The color.
Oh, that, okay, I have, okay, thank you, thank you, okay. All right, so I'm
You're good.
I'm good.
Anything else?
Public comment?
Public comment? Yes.
Jenny Caldwell, 69 Kimberly Circle. Going to be very quick. First of all, I just want to let you guys know that the posting for the meeting on the website still says 7 o'clock. So that needs to be corrected, because the only way to know that it starts at 6:30 is if you go into the meeting and open up the agenda. So it's not posted correctly.
Okay, give me one. Tammy, can you make a note and just send it downstairs so they know? Thank you.
I knew I was coming too early.
Tell them 6 o'clock, will you please? They'll be here by 6:30.
There are multiple different meetings that have changed times and places, and they're not right, but I just thought I would let you guys know.
All
so
right,
that
we'll
I can get
correct ours.
corrected.
Thank you, Jenny.
And then I just had a quick question. I just want to make sure I understand the MRSA money is the municipal projects money, is that correct?
Municipal grant and aid, yes.
Okay.
For the municipal projects, right.
And in the past, there was a lot of conversation around what it could and couldn't be used for and having to get waivers. So if it's getting, I understand that what you passed out and talked about tonight was a summary, but if it goes in the general fund, do those limitations still exist?
No, those limitations, well, they do still exist, right, so we have to request waivers for public works related items, specifically trucks,
Right.
vehicles.
But it's in the general fund, so it's just that when that money will be flagged somehow or another to know that in order to use it out of the general fund, that a waiver has to be used?
If it's for a vehicle, but if it's for a general expense, for, let's say, salt and sand needed for roads, then we would categorize that incremental expense under the expenditures.
Okay.
So waivers are only for the vehicles.
Okay. And then, can you just give a real quick rundown of the rest of the process for budgets? You're gonna have your budget workshops, And then the decisions around, around how, what you think should or shouldn't be funded, that happens in a caucus with the Republicans first and then comes to the board? Or how does that work so that, just so that the as a member of the public, we have an idea of when you guys decided, hey, we want to
Sure.
fund this versus that,
Sure.
how that decision was made and where that discussion happens?
Sure. Tonight, we'll finish our workshops. Once our workshops are finished, by state statute, we can't discuss it if it's not at a meeting as
Yeah.
a board.
Correct.
So the Republicans caucus, the members make their suggestions and recommendations, we put something together. In the past, the Democrats used to meet and have some suggestion as well. We meet in March, that's when, this side of the
That's
table.
when the sausage is made, the sausage
Yeah,
is
so
made.
this side of the table pretty much knows where we want. Now, in the past, Pat Brown is a perfect example. Pat made a recommendation, a suggestion. We looked at it, kind of made sense, and we incorporated it.
So will you?
If it doesn't make sense to us, we don't incorporate it.
So when you present after the caucus is done, because obviously the caucus, the public doesn't have access to that, when you're presenting, are you going to be presenting, we decided that this piece of the budget we thought was important? Is that going to be made public in a public meeting?
We have a document sheet that shows all our ins and outs
Okay,
as to what we're changing on every line item.
okay. And so that would happen at the March meeting?
March meeting.
And then what happens after that? When does the
We
public actually get to weigh in?
We finished discussing the budget then. If our Democrat members have suggestions that the board feels are warranted, we may make other changes. Then we have a town meeting
And then
to present the
I
budget.
present the budget in April, and that's when the public weighs in.
And the
And
public
after the
will-
public weighs in, we meet one more time to finalize it.
Okay,
And then
Okay.
there's another town meeting after that.
okay. All right, thanks.
Yeah, further changes and refinements are made at the April meeting as well.
April meeting, yeah. So there's
After
a
the
public hearing,
We listen to the public.
followed by our meeting in April,
Of April.
and then a town meeting.
Fifth, yeah. Jenny,
Jenny?
April 5th is the town meeting,
April 5th, okay,
Public hearing.
a public hearing.
Public hearing.
okay.
Any other public comment? Sally?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. Sally Buemi, 5 Blossom Drive. I just wanted a little clarification on Mr. Frieda's executive summary of the closeout for the last fiscal year on ARPA. As we all know, we didn't budget for ARPA in the last fiscal year because ARPA was only passed in March of 2021. But we did receive ARPA funds during the fiscal year because I believe we got the first tranche, if you will, our favorite word, in either late May or June. So when you said that no ARPA was being used to balance the budget except what was in the budget, now we know that no ARPA was budgeted for in our revenue budget, but when you said except what was in the budget, did you mean the money that was received during the fiscal year? Okay, so that money was used to balance.
But beyond that, no other money was used. So
Okay, what was the amount of that?
1,170,000.
Huh?
1,170,000.
Oh, the same amount that we did budget for in this current year.
Oh,
Okay.
maybe I'm wrong then.
Yeah, it's about 1,170,000, 1,240,000, somewhere. in
1,170,000 is what we budgeted for,
This year,
Mr.
but
Chairman,
I think it
this
was
year.
very close. I thought they were very close in the amounts. I don't remember off the top of my head.
So the money that we received in the fiscal year, even though it wasn't budgeted for, was used.
It's other revenues, just like we get other
Yeah,
revenues
I
from
know.
the state.
What was ever in the revenue this year?
Right, so it was used.
Was it used, or did you take it out and put it into the special account?
Well, it's in the budget. I think it's in the budget, so.
Well, maybe we'll.
Again, Sally, the auditor's coming next month.
Yeah, I
we
know,
find
but to
everything
me,
was a
that's a
preliminary draft.
very important distinction.
Yeah, and we
I
can
just
talk
wasn't
about it
clear
next
on.
month.
And the only other thing that I really wanted to discuss involves the expenditure budget. Specifically, I had some concerns about energy efficiencies, and as you know, Mr. Chairman, in the expenditure budget, there's lots of electricity and fuel lines throughout our expenditure budget. And I just, this has been something that I've been wanting to bring up for a while. Back in June of 2015, we had a special Board of Selectmen meeting, and we did the Johnson Controls contract. Mr. Doheny, you were on the board at that meeting. Perhaps you recall that very early morning meeting, and there were representatives from Johnson Controls. And I was very reluctant to go along with it, but you guys eventually convinced me that it was presented as the best thing since sliced bread. And what we did back then was we engaged in a performance contract with Johnson Controls. We took out a note for $6.5 million, and improvements were made during a 12-month period in both town hall buildings and Board of Ed buildings. I think a little bit more on the Board of Ed side. Was that your recollection?
Yes,
So
Monterey School, high school, yes.
Yeah, and some town. So, but the big sell for this was that the cost to the taxpayers, which was the $6.5 million note, and I'm looking at the minutes from that meeting, and you had said in the minutes that it was about $400,000 a year, and I remember Mr. Swinkowski telling me it was a little bit more than $30,000 a month payment on that note that the taxpayers are paying. Is supposed to be saved every month. And we were told at that meeting way back when that there would be quarterly reports from Johnson Controls verifying that the performance contract is working and that the savings from the upgrades in our infrastructure was enough to compensate. Is my recollection correct?
That's right.
Right. So, I've been studying these line items, and well, first let me say, I've been requesting those quarterly reports for years, and I've never been provided with them. Privately, by calling Mr. Swinkowski, and I was never given them. And so, I've been just comparing the various electric and gas heat bills over from 5 years ago to currently, and I just am not seeing those expenses. So, out of frustration, I could wait. I'm a patient person. I'll wait till this very busy budget season is over. But can I publicly request some of those quarterly reports that I've been requesting for years and that I was promised back when this was all done, so that I could see that, in fact, we're getting what we bargained for, which is savings from the infrastructure improvements, enough to pay for the $30,000 monthly obligation. So can I, when the dust settles sometime in the summer, can I finally see some of those quarterly reports? Is that possible?
Right, Ted, we'll make a note of that, okay?
Thank you.
We'll see if we can get those reports.
Were those reports supposed to be produced by us or
Johnson.
by Johnson?
Johnson Controls. Okay.
So they may exist.
Yes.
I'm sure they do. I just have never been provided with them, despite many, many requests. Okay, so that's all that I wanted. Thank you very much for your
Thank you.
time and attention.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, motion to adjourn.
Make that motion.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.
The preceding program is brought to you in part through a grant from the town of North Haven. Watch town meetings or other videos on demand at nhtv.com.